The room fell completely silent the moment she looked into the stranger's eyes. She swallowed hard, her hands trembling around the folder she was clutching against her chest. Tears threatened to escape, but she forced herself to stay composed. Then, with a shaky voice barely louder than a whisper, she asked a question that would change both of their lives forever. "Would you pretend to be my husband?" The man stared at her for several long seconds. He didn't laugh. He didn't walk away. Instead, the corner of his mouth lifted into the smallest smile. "If I'm pretending to be your husband," he said gently, "do I get to kiss my wife?" Her eyes widened. For the first time in months, she smiled. Neither of them realized that hidden across the street, someone had just taken a photograph of them together. That single picture would destroy one family, expose years of lies, and reveal a secret that had been buried for nearly 3 decades. Stay with this story until the very end, because every decision, every sacrifice, and every unexpected twist leads to a conclusion that proves sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the one we're born into. Emma Lawson had never imagined her life would fall apart before she turned 30. At 29 years old, she was the kind of woman people admired without truly knowing. She was intelligent, hardworking, and endlessly kind. She had spent 6 years building a career as an interior designer, turning empty houses into warm homes. Clients praised her creativity. Friends envied her independence. But appearances rarely told the whole story. Behind every polite smile was someone carrying the weight of a lifetime. Emma had lost her mother when she was only 11 years old. Cancer had taken away the one person who always believed in her. Her father, Richard Lawson, loved his daughter deeply, but grief had changed him. He buried himself in work, expanding the family's furniture company until it became one of the city's most respected businesses. They still loved each other. They simply didn't know how to say it anymore. For years, they communicated through short phone calls, birthday dinners, and holiday visits. Love had become routine. Then, 6 months earlier, everything changed. Richard collapsed during a board meeting. The diagnosis shocked everyone. His heart was failing. The doctors were hopeful, but only if he avoided stress. Stress, however, was impossible to avoid. Richard wasn't worried about his company. He wasn't worried about money. He worried about Emma. Every hospital visit ended with the same conversation. "I just want to know you'll never be alone." Emma always laughed. "Dad, I'm perfectly fine." "No." He would smile sadly. "You spend your whole life taking care of everyone else. Who's taking care of you?" She never answered because she didn't have one. 2 years earlier, she'd ended an engagement after discovering her fiancé had been secretly stealing money from her business account. The betrayal had left scars deeper than she admitted. Since then, she avoided dating altogether. It felt safer that way. But Richard's condition worsened. One evening, after another difficult hospital appointment, he gently squeezed her hand. "I don't need grandchildren." Emma smiled. "I don't need a wedding." She looked confused. "I just need peace. I want to believe someone will stand beside you when I'm gone." The words crushed her. She couldn't sleep that night. She couldn't stop imagining her father lying awake in his hospital room, worrying about her future. For the first time, she considered doing something completely irrational. The next morning, she searched online. Temporary companion services. Professional event partner. Actor for family gathering. She laughed at herself. This was ridiculous. Yet dozens of websites appeared. People hired fake dates all the time. Corporate dinners. Family reunions. Holiday events. Could someone pretend to be her husband? The idea sounded absurd, until desperation made absurd ideas feel reasonable. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the city, Daniel Brooks was having the worst week of his life. At 33, Daniel had once owned one of the fastest-growing construction firms in the region. He believed in honesty. He believed handshakes mattered. He believed loyalty meant something. Then his business partner disappeared, along with nearly $3 million. Daniel wasn't legally responsible for fraud, but creditors didn't care. Projects stopped. Employees left. Equipment was repossessed. His beautiful downtown office became an empty room with dusty windows. Still, he refused to declare bankruptcy. Instead, He spent every day taking whatever honest work he could find, repairing homes, designing kitchens, building decks, anything that allowed him to pay his former employees first. Boss, keep the money. One of them had told him. Daniel shook his head. You worked for it, but you need it. So do your kids. That was Daniel. Even when life gave him every reason to become bitter, he somehow became kinder. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, he volunteered at the neighborhood community center. Helping repair broken shelves before dinner was served to local families. As he packed away his tools, he noticed a little girl struggling to carry 3 large boxes. He hurried over. Need a hand? She grinned. My mom says I should be independent. Your mom is right. He picked up the boxes anyway. But even independent people deserve help. Emma happened to walk into the center at that exact moment. She had come to donate furniture left over from one of her projects. She watched the interaction from across the room. The little girl wrapped her tiny arms around Daniel before running off. He looked embarrassed by the unexpected hug. Emma smiled. There was something unusually gentle about him, not because he was handsome, although he certainly was. Tall, broad shoulders, dark brown hair that looked permanently windswept, warm hazel eyes that seemed to notice everyone around him. It was something else. He carried himself like someone who had suffered, without allowing suffering to define him. Their eyes met briefly. Both looked away. Neither expected that 5 minutes later they would be sitting across from each other. Mrs. Alvarez, the elderly director of the community center, introduced them. Emma donates furniture every month. She turned toward Daniel. And Daniel fixes everything she donates. Daniel laughed. So we're co-workers without knowing it. Emma laughed too. Their conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Favorite books, old movies, coffee versus tea, travel dreams they couldn't yet afford. For nearly an hour, neither looked at their phones. Mrs. Alvarez noticed. She smiled quietly to herself. Sometimes older people recognize beginnings before younger people did. As Emma prepared to leave, her phone rang. It was the hospital. She answered immediately. Her expression changed. What happened? Daniel couldn't hear the conversation. Only the fear. Only the silence afterward. Emma lowered the phone slowly. My father collapsed again. She whispered the words more to herself than anyone else. Without thinking, Daniel grabbed his truck keys. I'll drive. You don't have to. I know. 10 minutes later, they were speeding toward the hospital. Neither spoke much. Sometimes silence was the greatest kindness. At the emergency entrance, Emma turned toward him. I don't even know why you're helping me. Daniel smiled. My mother used to say kindness only counts when it's inconvenient. Emma nearly cried. Hours passed. Richard stabilized. The doctors assured Emma he'd recover, but emotional stress remained dangerous. When Richard finally woke, he looked at Daniel sitting beside Emma's chair. His tired face brightened. And who is this? Emma froze. Daniel looked at her. Neither knew what to say. Richard smiled knowingly. I interrupting something? Emma laughed awkwardly. No, Dad. Daniel stood politely. I'm Daniel. Richard extended a weak hand. Thank you for bringing my daughter here. It wasn't a problem. It was... Richard smiled gently. And you came anyway. That single sentence stayed with Daniel long after visiting hours ended. Outside the hospital, night had fallen. Rain reflected the city lights across empty streets. Emma leaned against the building. I owe you. You don't. I do. You bought furniture for families. You repaired it. I enjoyed repairing it. She laughed for the first time all day. Then, her expression became serious again. Can I ask you something completely unreasonable? Daniel folded his arms. I've survived a day. Try me. She looked down at the sidewalk. My father thinks... She hesitated. He thinks I'm alone. Daniel nodded. I am alone. She continued quietly. And I don't think his heart can take another disappointment. Daniel remained silent. Emma inhaled deeply. Then she looked directly into his eyes. Would you pretend to be my husband? The words echoed between them. Traffic passed in the distance. A siren wailed somewhere across the city. Neither moved. Daniel searched her face, expecting a joke. Instead, he saw exhaustion, fear, love for her father. Nothing about this request was selfish. Everything about it was desperate. He rubbed the back of his neck. This is definitely the strangest question I've ever been asked. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. I shouldn't have asked. You probably shouldn't have. I'll forget this happened. She turned to leave. Emma. She stopped. He smiled. If I'm pretending to be your husband. She looked back. Do I get to kiss my wife? For a second, she simply stared at him. Then, despite everything she'd been through, she laughed. A real laugh. One that echoed through the hospital parking lot. No kissing. She pointed a finger at him. Strictly professional. Daniel pretended to think. What? I was hoping fake marriage came with better employee benefits. She rolled her eyes. You really joke at a time like this? It's either laugh, he said softly, or let life win. Her smile faded into something gentler. Thank you. I haven't agreed yet, but you're considering it. I am. They walked slowly toward the parking lot. Neither noticed a black SUV parked across the street. Inside sat a sharply dressed man watching them through a camera lens. Click. The photograph captured Emma smiling at Daniel. Click. Another picture caught them standing close together. Click. A final image froze the exact moment Daniel opened the passenger door for her. The photographer smiled to himself. He pulled out his phone. I found her. A voice answered. Is she with someone? Yes. The man looked at the photographs again. And I think this just became much more interesting.